All right, folks, it's that time of the day, 1:30. We're gonna get started. We'll probably have a few people checking in late, but I'll get to them when I can. So, Monday, yay, Monday. So here's what we're gonna do today. We're out in the shop today. We're gonna go over a little bit more work on the nightstand, okay? So last thing we did out in the shop with the nightstand is we created the dados and rabbits for our side pieces. We cut the side pieces out at 11 3/4 wide, okay? So we had those ready. So what we're gonna be doing now, excuse me, we're gonna create some of the joinery that's necessary to mount side trim and top and face frame to this thing, some solid material to it. Okay, so first let's take a look at the plans. Excuse me, I've been eating a lot of dust out here today. All right, look at the plans first. All right, so what we have here so far, we've done this, okay? We drew out our locations of our two dados, our upper and our lower dado that's gonna accept the shelves. We drew out the locations of our rabbits that are going to accept the back, okay? And then we ripped the two sides into two pieces, 11 3/4 wide, okay? So that should be seen in the side panel diagram. We used 3/4 inch thick material, 11 3/4 inches wide, and our material was 27 inches long, okay? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start to create the joinery necessary, excuse me, to mount solid stock. And that consists of the following things, okay? These little football shaped guys, people still coming in. Okay, these little guys right here at the top are pocket holes, and then there's 3 along the front edge. Remember, our rabbit is at the back edge, tells us right here, this is our front edge, okay? So we're gonna have 3 pocket holes along the front edge that we're going to use to hold our face frame in place. We'll have 2 pocket holes at the top edge of each side that allow us to hold our top on, okay? These little plus signs right here are countersink holes. We're gonna talk about those a little more tomorrow. But those countersink holes are gonna allow us to mount our side trim, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and look at how we do these, how we mark them, how we cut them, and all that stuff, okay? So here we go. Dang, the dust in here is killing me, folks. All right, so I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. Hopefully I can see how well you guys can see. That would help. All right. So what we have right here is a side that I've already done the pocket holes on, so you can see what it looks like, okay? These little guys here. Well, that's upside down, but you get the idea. This is the front edge here, right? 1, 2, 3 pocket holes on the front edge, 2 at the top edge, okay? Now the way these things are made is with a special jig. And the jig is nothing more than a fancy way of saying, wow, I clamped this on there and allowed me to do this, okay? So basically what it is over here on my right, if I can get this thing to go the right way, this little guy right here, this block right here is the same as this block right here, okay? So we're gonna take a little closer look, all right, and show you what this thing's all about. So it consists of the jig over there I just showed you, okay, which has this block in it, right? And we've got a bit like this chucked in a drill, okay? And this bit is special in that it's a step drill bit. It's called a pocket hole bit, but it's basically a step drill bit. What you have is you have about a 1/2 inch of the tip of the bit right here that's a very small diameter, okay? That's the pre-drill for the screw itself, okay? Then you've got this larger diameter shank here. That's where the head of the screw gets sunk down below the surface of the wood. Then you've got this little stop right here. It's got a little Allen screw that you can loosen to move the stop up or down the shaft of the bit. Okay, so the way this works is when we clamp our material in there and we chuck this in a drill, basically we're going to drill this thing down through here, and this is the portion that's going to get exposed. Okay, that stop right there is going to stop it at the proper depth. All right, so that's how we're going to do it. In other words, we're creating this, right? It's got a pre-drilled hole for the screw right here out of the edge, but this large football-shaped guy is where the head of our screw goes. Now, it's kind of particular what screws you use. Probably the most common screw that any of you may have seen in the past are what's called, well, the common name for these guys are sheetrock screws. Okay? And that's this little guy right here. Okay? It's a little sheetrock screw. All right? It's basically, I learned them as a bugle head screw. And why I say a bugle head screw is because it's the head of it's shaped like this. Right? Kind of like a bugle, a trumpet's horn. Okay? And that's so that when you drill a hole, the head of the screw will sit flush with the surface. Okay? That's the idea. Now, if we used one of these screws in these pocket holes, that taper underneath, I'm going the wrong way, I'm trying to see what I'm looking at here. That taper underneath the screw head is going to want to just find its way all the way through that hole and pop out the other side. It's not very effective. So the screws we use are these right here. They're flathead screws. They've got flat bottoms on the underside, okay, that tend to not pull their way through the material as you drive a screw. Okay, so these are what we're using for pocket hole screws. All right, so that's pocket hole joinery 101. It's as simple as it sounds. It's probably even simpler than I make it sound. Okay, but the first thing we need to do is we need to find out where on this material we want to drill our pocket holes. Now, the reason there's a very particular place that we want to drill it is when we go to mount our face frame on this edge or our top up here at the top, okay, we're going to have to come inside here with a drill and drill from inside, okay? If we're too close to a shelf, too close to the top, too close to something else, it's going to make it very difficult to drill it. So we're going to place these holes 2 inches from a joint, 2 inches from a joint, okay, or 2 inches from a corner, like up here, okay, or 2 inches down from a corner, or 2 inches in from a joint, okay. Now, since every single one of these little guys is spaced 2 inches from something, that makes our life pretty easy. We're going to take a sliding square, which is this little guy right here. I'll just keep one of these little ones in my pocket. Does anybody know why I keep one of these little ones in my pocket? Anybody? Because I can, that's why. Nobody can tell me I can't. So basically all we have to do, since all these things have to be 2 inches from somewhere, okay, we're going to slide this thing up. So our 2 inch mark, our 2 inch mark's right here. We're going to slide it so the 2 inch mark is up against this flat surface. That means the end of this rule is 2 inches from here. We can cinch it down. Then we're going to take our side, which I just happen to have one over here that hasn't been done yet. Okay. We're going to mark them out. So 2 inches from a joint, which is what a dado or a rabbit is. It's called a joint. Okay. All we have to do is make a little pencil mark, 2 inches from that joint. Well, I'm not where you guys can see me. Come on. Okay. So all I do is I set the flat of my square right there, make a pencil mark right here. I need one 2 inches down from here. So set my square up against that bottom edge of the dado, make a mark. I need one 2 inches down from this corner. Set it up against the edge. There it is. There's our 3 pocket hole locations along the front edge. Same thing here. 2 inches from this rabbit, make a mark. 2 inches from this corner, make a mark. All right. I'm going to mark these with a felt marker so you guys can kind of see them. Two inches, 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches. Okay. So that's the location of our pocket holes, right? 2 at the top, 1, 1, 2, 3 along the front edge. Okay? So that's what we're going to drill. All we have to do is we're going to clamp our part. Let's see if this works. Into this jig. And we're going to drill it. All right? Piece of cake. So this collar right here, this little stop collar, is going to stop it at the right depth. Okay? Open the clamp. All we're going to do is line our mark up with one of these 3 holes, right? One of these 3 holes here. So we can line our mark up with a hole, clamp it down so it doesn't move. Make sure the drill's going forward, not reverse. And there's our first pocket hole. Okay? Doesn't take much. It's really a piece of cake. Do the next one. The other edge. You want to keep this little fence clean. The last thing you want to do is hold it off the fence a little bit. Make your hole too deep. Two more. Last one. Grip down tight and there we go. Okay. So there are our pod holes. 1, 2, 3, and then the 2 at the top. Okay? Piece of cake. No problem. All right. So tomorrow we'll deal with the countersink holes. I have to move the camera all the way over to the other side of the shop. I don't want to do that. So what else we can do today is, let me see if anybody else is trying to get in. Yeah, there's somebody right there. All right. Exactly. That's exactly what. You never know when you're going to need to make one of these. All right. It's either that or we can sit around and watch stupid cartoons all quarter. I don't know what kind of cartoons you guys watch, but what do you guys are in high school now, so what do you watch? Like Teletubbies and Hello Kitty stuff? Is that what you guys kind of watch? Cartoons? I don't know. I don't watch those kind of cartoons. All right, so next thing we're going to work on is our back and our shelves. All right, and that's going to be this stuff right here. Okay, we'll zoom out a little bit so you guys can see it. Okay, so before we can do this, I want to show you guys in the plans what's going on. Okay. Phineas and Ferb, A Cat in the Hat. That's probably. You guys ever even hear about? Come on, the best cartoons on television are Bugs Bunny, Roadrunner. So you guys need to get with the program here. All right, so here we go. Let's take a look at the plans. So we just completed these pocket holes. Tomorrow we're going to worry about these countersink holes. Okay. What's that? Okay. But what I want to do now is talk to you about the shelf, the 2 shelves in the back. So you can infer some information from what we've already done so far. All the dados and rabbits, all right? You guys remember, this is a dado running across here for the upper shelf. This is a dado running across here for the bottom shelf. This is a rabbit. This is another rabbit to accept back, okay? So if this set of plans tells you that all the dados and rabbits are 5/8 of an inch wide, you should be able to infer something from that. In other words, if those dados and rabbets are 5/8 of an inch wide, most likely, not always, most likely, the material that's going to sit in those dados and rabbets is 5/8 of an inch thick. All right. So that's what I have over there. I have a piece of 5/8 inch material that we're going to get our back and our shelves out of. Okay. So one thing that's interesting about the back and the shelves, I want to show you guys this. And this is a really important concept. Okay. So we've finished our side panels, 2 each, 3/4 thick, 11 3/4 wide, 27 inches long, which just happens to be our order of operations. Thickness first, then width, then length. That's the order in which we move through the shop and prepare a piece of material for use in furniture. Okay, we do the thickness first, then the width, then the second, then the length. Every set of plans you have or ever will see in this shop will be in that exact same order. Thickness will always be listed first, width will be listed second, length will be listed third. Okay, so what we're going to worry about now is our back, which we need one of. It's 5/8 thick, there's 13.5 wide and 27 long. The length is the same as the sides, which makes sense. Our two shelf partitions are 5/8 of an inch thick, 11 inches wide, and 13.5 inches long. Now there's a similarity here that I want you guys to be aware of. The length of the shelves is the same as the width of the backs. Now that's really important in that if you don't cut the shelves at 13.5 long and the back at 13.5 wide, and if you don't get them exactly the same, you're going to have trouble. If you're 1/8 of an inch short or 1/8 of an inch shy on this 13.5 inch measurement, in other words, if you cut your back to 13 3/8, you better cut your shelves to 13 3/8 long, or it's not going to work. You'll see that when we go to dry fit it together. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to mark our back and our shelves out on our board. Hopefully that's something you're starting to see as a pattern, is that we always mark all of our parts out on our material before we make any cuts. Okay, we never just walk up to a machine and start cutting. We always mark our parts out first. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but it'd be a heck of a lot easier to explain and show all the reasons for that when you guys are in here in the shop, when we get back out here. Okay, so for right now, let's go ahead and start marking these things out. Okay. All right, so here we go. All right, pay attention to what I'm doing, not what the goobers are saying in the chat right now. So here's what we need. This board is already at 27 inches in this dimension. Okay, so that's going to be our back length. All right, so we need something 13.5 inches wide. So we'll take our tape. We're going to make a mark at 13.5 inches. Okay, now I know you guys can't see that from where you are, but I'm going to actually zoom it in a little bit so maybe you can see a little better. All right, so I want you guys to be able to see this, and my mark is right here. So let me move it a little bit. All right, there we go. So I have a mark right here at 13.5 inches. Okay, I'm going to make a second mark 1/8 of an inch past my first mark. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and draw those so you can see it. Then I want to talk about why I did that. Okay. All right, so there's a pair of lines right there, separated by 1/8 of an inch. Okay. Now here's why we do that. Whenever we draw our parts on material, we always separate them by 1/8 of an inch. Okay, here's why. The blade on our table saw is 1/8 of an inch thick. The blade on our miter saw behind me is 1/8 of an inch thick. The blade on our panel saw is 1/8 of an inch thick. Okay, every time we make a cut in material, we're going to remove 1/8 of an inch of material that we can't get back. Okay, that's called our blade curve. Okay, so we have to account for that when we draw our parts. because if we have 10 parts on here and we don't draw that blade kerf in, and our last part comes all the way to the far end of the board, and we didn't compensate for those blade kerfs, we're not going to realize until we get down to cutting it that we don't have enough material here. So we always draw our blade kerfs. We're going to label our parts as well. This is going to be our back. Now, what I said about the shelves being the same length as the width of the back. So we're just going to draw another line starting from the last line we drew, this near side of our blade kerf, 13.5 inches. We're going to make another mark. Okay. Now it's incredibly difficult to mark accurately using the end of a tape measure on a pencil mark as opposed to hooked on the end of a board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my 10-inch mark. We're going to make that our new 0. Okay, so if we want to go 13.5 inches using 10 inches as our 0, that'll take us to 23.5 inches. All right. Then we make another mark, an 1/8 of an inch past that to represent our blade kerf. We draw those lines. There's one, and there's our kerf. Okay. All right, so this will be our shelves. That's our back. The other dimension of our shelves, this was 13.5. The other dimension of our shelves was 11 inches. So we're going to go ahead and draw that. All right, we're just going to come up from the bottom edge. We're going to come up 11 inches, make a mark, make another mark an 1/8 of an inch past that. We're going to slide our 10-inch mark up to it. That's our new 0. Make a mark at 11, 1/8 of an inch past that. And we draw those kerfs. K-E-R-F, blade kerf. All right. You guys should know how to spell a little bit. All right, there's our other one. All right, so there's our 2 shelves. Okay, that's shelf 1. That's shelf 2. All right, so now we're ready to cut these. Okay, and the way we're going to cut these is on a machine over here to my left. You're right. I don't know how this thing looks. Called a panel saw. Okay. Now the panel saw, let me go ahead and rotate over to it so you can see it while I'm talking about it. Go up a little bit. Zoom in a little bit. Okay, that is our panel saw. It's a very nice panel saw. Okay. Basically all it is a circular saw mounted in a carriage. Okay, that can move up and down. Now, the main purpose of the panel saw is to rough cut sheet goods. Okay, sheet goods, I mean plywoods, particle boards, things like that. What this back and sides are made of. And when I say rough cut, what I mean is this. That machine is not known for being incredibly accurate. It would be very, very difficult to walk up to that machine and quickly cut a board to 25 3/16 of an inch long. It doesn't work that way. What it can do is it can repeat cuts accurately. In other words, I can set a stop, okay, a physical place at which a board slides up to and stops. I can set a stop and I can make repeated cuts that are the same as each other, okay? And that's what we're looking for here. What we need is the length of the shelves to be the same as the width of the back. If we're a little bit off, it's okay as long as they're both the same. So we're going to set a stop over there, okay? We're going to see if we can cut these things consistently. All right. So set it in here. We check our stop. Easiest way to check a stop on this machine is to lock a tape measure out. Bring this down. The blade guard in here, you need to move out of the way so you your tape right at the end of the sheet. Okay. So all right. So we've got our stop set. the stop out of the way. When you slide a board up the stop on this machine, do it nicely. If you slide it in hard at all, it's going to fudge that, it's going to bump that stop, it's going to move it. All right. So we're up tight against the stop. There's our back. Okay.
Mr. Brandon, I think you forgot your mic.
Good.
Is that your mic right there, or
Hear me at all?
barely?
I think it might be dying. Have I not made any sound this entire? No, you guys have heard me at some point, right?
We could hear you. It's just very, like, muffled.
Yeah, the battery's about to die on this thing, and I don't know if I'd kind of gotten past its limit for distance. Does it sound any better right now? I'm closer to the little
Yes,
receiver.
it sounds a lot better now that you're closer.
Okay, yeah, I was about 40 feet away. So good, thank you for letting me know. What we're gonna do now is I've got to move the camera. I'm gonna move it over the table side so you guys can see this next step, okay? So bear with me. This is a little bit interesting to move this whole get up without tripping over something and hurting something or someone. Okay, so let's see if we can do this without causing any major damage. I'm probably more replaceable than this camera is, so I'll try to save the camera if I go down. And we need more legs. I appreciate you guys telling me if you can't hear me, because there's no way for me to know if you can or can't. All right. Okay, so just about there. All right. So we're here at the table saw, because what we need to do is we've got the back done, right? And the remote. Which one of you left the remote? Okay. Okay, you guys are probably just looking at the car toolkit right now and the bumper, so enjoy it while you can. Takes a lot of tools to make guitars, I guess. Okay, so let's rotate her over to the table saw. Come on. Okay, there we go. Back out a little bit. All right, so one of the things I'm going to do before we get too much further is, because I have a real problem with not doing things dead on as I can. So what I did was I cut the back and shelves just a touch oversized so that I can bring them over here to the table saw and set it to exactly 13.5. All right, and I can rip these to find that size. Let's go. All right, so we have a problem here. We need to cut the shelves to length, but right now the shelves are 13.5 inches wide, and we can't cut them to length on the miter saw because the maximum width that miter saw can handle is about 12 inches. Okay, so we can't do it on the miter saw. We don't want to do it on the panel saw because it's got a minimum size requirement. It can't handle anything about 12 inches or smaller. So another problem we have is we can't do this. Okay, this is very, very bad. This is putting the short edge against the fence. We can never, on any of the machines in here, I don't care which one it is, joiner, dado saw, table saw, miter saw, it doesn't matter what it is, we never, ever, ever put the short edge against the fence. We have to have the long edge against the fence. But we need to cut this board this way. We need to cross cut this board, okay? We have a jig here for the table saw that allows us to do that, okay? Yeah, down a little bit. It's the cutoff sled, all right? It's got these tracks on the bottom that ride in the miter slots. Okay, so all we have to do, raise the blade a little more to how far above it? About 1/4 inch above your material. Okay, then all we have to do, this is a good visual of what a blade kerf is. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but there's a slot right here that was made by the blade. You can see it in here too. Okay, let me see if I can bring it this way a little bit. You can see it. You can kind of see it, it looks like. Okay, and that's the kerf. So all we have to do, we've got our pencil lines on this board at our shelf links. Okay, those were drawn accurately. So all we really have to do is put our pencil lines right there lined up with the kerf in the jig. And like that. And cut that. Scrap. And there's our 2 shelves. Okay? Shelves, back, ready to go. Now, every single time we create something in this shop, you have to do what's called, so which one are we going to this one? Did I say create what's called? You have to do something called dry fit. In other words, we assemble our work without glue or fasteners to make sure everything's good. So here's how you do it. Give you an idea where we are. Here are 2 sides. Get a mallet, just in case we have to beat it into submission. All right, so here's how we assemble the carcass, the main structure of an ice. Okay, we set this here with the rabbets touching. All right, we're going to take one shelf, line it up with the front edge. There should be a little gap at the back. It's designed that way. Same thing here. Second shelf, get it lined up front. Take your other side, line it up at the front, line it up at the front, work it back, your back, set it in place. And that's our dry fit, okay? So that's the finished carcass, not with glue and nails and things like that. But that's our start, okay? We will have, let's see, we'll have a solid top on here. We'll have a solid face frame cover all these edges, and we'll have some trim, 2-inch wide trim, go around the sides like this, okay? So that will be what we start with. Okay, so that's where we are right now. Tomorrow we'll go over countersink holes and things like that a little bit. We'll probably assemble this guy, glue and nails, get it together. Then we can start talking about solid stock and things like that. Okay, somebody just came in. I don't know if I already had it. It was coming. So. All right. Yeah, he was coming back in. Okay, so do you guys have any questions? Anything like that? Okay, so Jason, Mr. Green, if I see you doing anything like this again or typing in other languages, I will remove you from the class. Do you understand that? Okay, it's not going to happen in here. In fact, I think tomorrow what we'll do is very first thing, we'll have a quiz on what happened in class today. Okay, because if you're not going to pay attention, then you're not going to pass the class. It's that simple. I'm not doing this for my health. Okay, I'm trying my best to give you guys something to go on here, something at all. This is what you would normally doing were you in this room, but since you're not, it's the best I can come up with. If you have a better idea, let me know. Let me know and I'll consider it. All right. So enough of the screwing around on here. Okay. So now what I need you guys to do is go ahead and type your name in the chat. That'll be how I take roll at the end of class. Once I've done that, you're welcome to go. Monday's done. Have a nice day. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you tomorrow. You guys have a nice day.